Firstly, I want to say on behalf of the International Analog Forestry Network, IAFN, the Red Ecuatoriana de Forestería Análoga, REFA, and Fundación Regenerativa in Chile, we're very happy to launch this three-part virtual series called Collective Transitions to Socio-Ecological Reality. Across the globe, we're seeing how communities continue to face overlapping health, food, economic, social, and environmental crises, which are further being exacerbated by the climate crisis. And we see that there's an urgent need to work towards a socio-ecological future and build collective resilience to these multifaceted crises. Yes, this means taking concrete steps to move away from the extractive, profit-driven economies and industries, but this also means recognizing the different systems of oppression and dominance, including patriarchy, colonialism, and racism that fuel these same economies and industries. When we talk about just transitions and the socio-ecological realities themselves, we are talking about making sure we do not repeat patterns of dominance, othering, and separation of people and nature. Instead, we envision communities and ecosystems that center care, equity, justice, and regeneration for all people and our planet. IAFN, REFA, and Regenerativa have come together to organize these virtual series with the aim of providing a space to further talk about and collectively reflect on what these transitions towards socio-ecological realities can look like. We aim to bring together voices and experiences from different countries and contexts, starting today with the socioeconomic crisis in Sri Lanka, followed by transition experiences in Ecuador at the community level, so early September. This will be happening in early September. And finally, in October, we will be hearing from colleagues and partners in Chile who are pushing forward such a transition at the national level, and then what this looks like in practice. Once more, we welcome you to the space. We hope you can join us for the 3 roundtables that will be part of the series. And we also truly hope that these conversations will continue long past the culmination of this series. So to start today, we are talking about Sri Lanka. And as many of you know, Sri Lanka is facing the dire consequences of a historical, social, political, economic and food crises. I was reading some newspaper articles, and it is estimated that 5.7 million women, children, and men are in need of immediate life-saving assistance, including essential medicines, food, and livelihoods. And there's 86% of households that are using at least one coping mechanism in response to the food crisis, such as reducing their food intake, like skipping meals. Furthermore, we have seen how democracy is being deteriorated in the country, and with civil society engagement being severely limited since President Wickremesinghe was appointed on the 20th of July. So for many of us across the globe involved in the restoration, regeneration, and agroecological movements, it is highly concerning to see statements being made by individuals, organizations, and the media indicating that the passing of the ban on imports of chemical fertilizers in April 21, which was pushed through under the guise of contributing to Sri Lanka's commitment to transition towards organic agriculture over a period of 10 years, was the sole factor that caused the current food and economic crisis. This is a limited analysis and doesn't recognize other historical contributing factors, such as the costs of a 3-decade-long civil war, weak governance and political systems, heavy borrowing for the development of large infrastructure projects, an import-driven economy, the direct effects of COVID-19, and the shrinking of the country's tourism industry. We feel it is important to join the energies of social, environmental, and climate justice movements and organizations that are demystifying the causes of the current crisis in Sri Lanka. We are therefore very honored to be joined today by Ranil, the founder of the Analog Forestry Methodology and the International Analog Forestry Network, Mr. Thilak Kariyawasam, the president of the Lanka Organic Agricultural Movement, and Dr. Vandana Shiva, environmental activist, food sovereignty advocate, ecofeminist, and anti-globalisation author for this conversation. So thank you very much for being here. And I would like to say that they're joining us at a very early hour. It's like 6:30 a.m. in Sri Lanka and India at the moment. So thank you very much for that. The format of today's session will be, we will start with 2 rounds of questions for the panelists. And then we also hope to open the floor for questions and comments from all the participants here today that are joining us from different countries across the globe. So with that said, I also fully forgot to use my PowerPoint that I had worked on today. So I'll just go through that, but show you this slide before I will turn it off. I firstly would like to go to Thilak. So Thilak, from your perspective, knowing that you're president of the Lankan organic agricultural movement, what are the reasons for the failure in the implementation of the agroecological policy pushed forward by the Sri Lankan government, which meant banning chemical agricultural inputs? From your perspective, what could have been better? What could have been done better in Sri Lanka to achieve a successful transition? And I know, Thilak, you wanted to share a video, and I'm asking Gallo to put the link to the video in the chat so that people can also view it. But please go ahead. You have about 8 to 10 minutes. Thilak?
Good morning to you all. Yes, Maite, is Gallo is playing the video, or how it could be?
Gallo, will you be able to show the video?
If not, we can. Well, we'll go ahead. The good morning to all from Sri Lanka. I think from here, even though it is too early, the rest of the world, it's almost they are taking advantage for the day. Especially with your question, Maite, you know what are the reason behind this decision? Why our president has pledged this the promises to the world during the special the moment, and for the Sri Lanka, it's 100% the subsidy for the chemical fertilizer with his election manifesto, and it was given. And for a season, it is around $350 million for a subsidy for a chemical agriculture. When he came to power, he had many problems for the finding money to giving this subsidy, and therefore he thought the stopping the importing the chemical fertilizer into country with this to serve this $350 million would be bringing a kind of considerations to his budget. And with that, he thought that going as a transition to organic will give that saving. And this organic 100% organic promise was not came as natural, or because of the health reason or the environmental reason. What they were saying, it is those reasons, but it is not true. And again, this decision was taken up by the president with the discussing of the few his the allies, not hearing from the scientific the community or the other people who were really working on to the organic agriculture in last 30 to 35 years. And just like Dr. Ranil Senanayake or other people, they were not consulted us how to do this and how it could be. Because in the country, there is an organic movement nearly 10 years, 30 years old. we were doing a lot of work in there, but they haven't obtained our any kind of experiences or anything. With this thing, I was also bringing another the important area to you, because when the government announced this the 100% organic policy, it is a kind of a very good the policy we had ever. It is just called green economic proposals. We not only on the organic agriculture, but there are a lot of other things like promoting alternative energy, the green climate, the smart agriculture practices. There are a lot of other things connected with this proposal. But the president was appointed 49 people's the committee to come up with the roadmap. That roadmap haven't came up because in behind within this 49 people, there are a lot of people who were engaged with the chemical agriculture, who were promoting chemical agriculture, and part of the some of them are part of the crop life Sri Lanka. The crop life was played a kind of a hidden role, and soon after president put this proposal, the crop life Sri Lanka, all the chemical people's the collective came up with the concept paper saying, oh, they can promote the biopesticide, they can advise how to promote the biopesticide and biofertilizer, and that concept, based on that concept, some of the plantation companies work on in that direction. But real situation of the country, the government system, the extension people don't have this knowledge. They didn't have that knowledge, and they were blind on this part. They haven't done anything on that, and there were no system to get it. Even though we, together with Dr. Ranil, Dr. Vandana Shiva, and we, with many times, we offer this knowledge to them, of the government sector, how to get and do the things in with perfectly with the either organic or regenerative or ecological, the different path we were shown where they can take into the this policy. Another thing, without that knowledge, they went for an overnight transition. That is the bad thing where they have done, because if you ask people who is committed to commit first with the 100% organic policy, there were some people who were ready to go into. Even right now, those people are there, and they were producing organic fertilizer. They were producing a lot of the liquid fertilizer. They were following the organic itself, but there are no proper recognition. Even right now, there are no in this time. They were with this international situation. The ground level situation is very bad with the economic crisis, and the fertilizer price, chemical fertilizer price gone into 400 times, and with this, it is a good, naturally people are coming to the organic sector because they can't afford the fertilizer, and therefore there are no subsidies for organic the fertilizer. They are just giving the fertilizer subsidy, only chemical fertilizer. The organic extension package was not publicized, and still they follow the government sector, follow the chemical agriculture package, extension package. Therefore, people who committed and convinced that there are no such kind of a the fertilizer subsidy where they can get as the same way the chemical agriculture get, and that is the bad thing. And another thing, this still this the chemical lobby is highly happening in a different way in the country. They were the many ways they are using it. The either university professionals they are using, and different other people they are using, and together with the politicians to lobby to the change of this decision. And we are not agreeing for the transition with the overnight thing, but it could be if they have done with the stepwise, it could be a better way to do it, and getting the international knowledge or either the local knowledge. That will make very good the decision with the what the president was stating his speech in the last UN summit. He want to go with the zero emission country. He want to go with the kind of green economic principles where the other funders and others can get to attract to the country, and we could be the first country if we were systematically transition was done, we could be the one of the main country in with these green economic principles. These are the reasons behind with this decision why it is not succeeded with the overnight decision.
Thilak, thank you so much. I think you've highlighted quite a few things here. I've grabbed a few ideas that you said that it was sold as a focus on better health and better for the environment, but actually it was seen as an economic saving by the government. You also talked about there not being a roadmap actually being developed to implement the policy, and hence why this just happened from one day to the next, and it was all very quick. And another thing that you mentioned was that the government didn't publicize the package that would support farmers to do that transition, and it actually still focused on the chemical fertilizer. So those were a few of the ideas that you shared that I grabbed. I would like to move towards Dr. Shiva. I'm going to spotlight you as well, who is joining us from India, and we would love to hear from you, from your knowledge and experience, particularly working with organizations and networks across the globe. What is required for a just and effective transition towards organic or agri-ecological practices? But also, what do you see as the threats to a just transition? So, Dr. Shiva, thank you so much for being here, and please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Maite, and Thilak and Ranil. You know, before the disaster was still hitting Sri Lanka, but I remember we had a Zoom like this about how it could work. Why did I enter the field of agriculture? It is not my field of training. Quantum theory is physics, and quantum theory is my field of training. But in 1984, Punjab, which was the richest part of India, where the Green Revolution was imposed, and it's always called, you know, the miracles that saved India. India was not starving in 1965, just like organic farming didn't create the Sri Lankan crisis. The power of the poison cartel who came out of Hitler's Germany in propaganda is so high that they can create a famine in India when it wasn't. They can create a causation for organic when it is not the cause for the bigger collapse. And I've put in the chat box my longer piece on how COVID, the lockdown, and the borrowing for unnecessary projects is part of the system. So when I started then to start looking at agriculture, I did a book for the United Nations University called The Violence of the Green Revolution, but have since that time dedicated my life to an agriculture that works for the earth and works for people. And in the process, I have been part of the just transition around the world. We in 2020 took a pledge that we will work to get rid of these war chemicals that have been introduced artificially into agriculture after the war. They don't have a long history. And the same people who are today crop life, who are spreading the myths about how the Sri Lankan crisis is solely, exclusively rooted in one decision to stop import of fertilizer, they, of course, continue to say we feed the world, but all our work is showing that biodiverse intensive ecological agriculture without external inputs produces more when you measure in biodiversity and nutrition and health per acre, and it creates higher income. So we have two reports, health per acre, wealth per acre, that counters the myth of the poisons feed the world. Cuba, I think, is an amazing example to look at, particularly because it's also an island. It's also in the tropical areas like Sri Lanka, rich in biodiversity, rich in biological productivity. In 1989, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, the economy of Cuba collapsed. The fertilizers, the oil they used to get from Soviet Union was no more. And then adding to it in 3 years' time, at the time when we went at at the Earth Summit, that same year, the Americans passed, in good double speak, the Cuban Democracy Act to basically put an embargo on Cuba. 96, they passed another act called the Cuba Liberty and Democracy and Solidarity Act to further strangulate Cuba. Well, Cuba did not allow this to push it into a corner. People were starting to starve. And Cuba made a decision to shift to organic. And they shifted to organic in a way that was holistic. And I'll come to that just now. But I have visited twice, I've been a guest, to visit the organic transition. And I could not believe my eyes, otherwise Cuba is made to look so drab in all the global media. 8,000 gardens in Havana, run by 30,000 people, including the government. Abundant vegetables, and they are left outside the gate for people to take for free. They went from starvation to abundance. There is no hunger in Cuba. And in fact, Cuba is, in terms of health, in terms of nutrition, much, much above so many other countries. They've created gardens everywhere, people's gardens, small farms, intensive gardens like these urban gardens, green belt around the city, and large farms. And the organic movement in Sri Lanka, in Cuba, is doing very well. In 1999, Cuba also got the Right Livelihood Award, called the Alternative Nobel Prize, for this work in transition. By 1995, the food shortages were over. And in 96, 97, they got the highest output ever. So organic does not decrease yields. The other country, of course, because geopolitically, Cuba is the enemy country that must be squashed, you don't hear about these successes in the mainstream media, but there's lots and lots of literature on the successful organic revolution of Cuba. Sikkim, very different part of the world, up in the Himalaya, another state I worked with. In 2003, the chief minister who served 5 terms, Pawan Chamling, with whom I worked very closely, he decided that he did not want to repeat the mistakes of the places of the world that had adopted chemical agriculture. He had seen the diseases, he had seen the poverty, he'd seen the drain of wealth. And basically, Chamling in 2003 started to think about an organic. Sikkim, by 2004, they had put in place a policy, something that was never done in Sri Lanka. In 2010, an organic mission was created to implement this policy. the integration that is vital between animals, trees, crops of diversity, that was part of any indigenous agriculture system, and that was enhanced. A focus was put on livelihoods and employment, and a cultural revolution was undertaken. So young people were not leaving the land, and it's more because of the culture of, oh, agriculture is a backward occupation, that young people leave the land for nothing in the cities. They did the opposite in Sikkim. They said it's the best thing to do, to be a farmer, a proud farmer. And they created the infrastructure. They created the infrastructure for allowing farmers to strengthen their organic and ecological and biodiverse practices. They phased out chemical fertilizer, but they phased it out. And that's the big difference. And they removed the subsidies, and they started to give incentives to farmers to make their own compost, their own on-farm manures. And that was another problem, as Thilak has just said. Organic is not a substitution system. You don't say, here are chemical fertilizers, I'll get rid of them and take contaminated fertilizer from China. No. Organic is healing the cycles of the earth, the nutrition cycles of the earth, recycling, growing more biomass. And who is better at this than dear Ranil, who constantly reminds us that the photosynthetic biomass is the key to both ecology and economy. To do this, Sikkim created an apex committee at the national level, a steering committee of the officials, and the organic mission to be advised by a technical advisory committee, something that Thilak says was not done, even though there are people like Ranil and Thilak. And you know, I have worked with the organic movement of Sri Lanka for 30 years. Amazing people. And I have not just worked with the organic farming movement, I worked with the scientists who have constantly been showing the harm of chemical agriculture. Most people have already forgotten that the big kidney failure epidemic that took place in the areas where Roundup was being spread, you know, those scientists were given awards, and those awards, the pressure was put to pull back the awards. And now a new study has been done to say it's in the water, because of the water. Well, the water is contaminated by glyphosate. So glyphosate is constantly protected. The poison cartel protects the poison. You need sovereign countries, sovereign governments, sovereign policymakers to make the real commitment. Sikkim put at heart the principles of health, ecology, farming, fairness, and care. And that is what they have done. They've reduced production costs, they've increased biodiversity, they've created markets. If you go to Thimphu, there's a huge 3-story farmers market where women can come with this much vegetable and sell it straight. But vans go to the villages to pick up the vegetables. And the organic transition has boosted the tourism, because now organic tourism allows you to eat the best in the most beautiful areas of Sikkim. The best quality food is available. And of course, a fair price and a premium price is available. The research facilities were created, training and capacity building was created, and that's how I've played a role with Sikkim. They even have books for children on the basic concepts of organic, and 100 villages, 10,000 farmers have been through the trainings of the government. Organic centers of excellence have been created. And it's the same with Cuba. You know, their whole research system overnight became an organic research system. And I cannot believe the excellence of the research in the labs of Cuba. And I said, you know, people like us built the organic movement because of ecological and ethical reasons. But Cuba was a place where the top science and the grassroots joined to make a revolution. There are 3 organic training centers, and in 2016, a National Organic Farming Research Institute has been created. I'm very happy to say that Sikkim got the world's award for the best policy on organic in, I think, 2016, I might be wrong, at the FAO. And even though the elected head has changed, the policies have not changed. And that makes me very, very hopeful and very optimistic. Our own work in Afghania shows that you change the indicators, you change the practices, you can grow more food, the farmers can earn higher income, and your economies can actually become robust, not just robust in terms of economic variability, collapsing farm prices, rising food prices, but also climate resilience. That is a factor we cannot ignore. So thank you so much. I'm happy to join you and very happy to join Thilak and Ranil again. And we will make Sri Lanka and other countries truly organic. And to the poison cartel, I want to send a message. Your propaganda will not keep us down.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shiva. And that was a great message at the end. I think super important, the message you were saying about propaganda and research. I think here research and really highlighting the research on the organic movement and what has been working is important to keep on using that evidence that this is really working and it should come forward. No, so thank you so much for that. I would like to move to Ranil. I just have to find you on this very long list of people. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Here we go. There we go. Ranil, thank you so much for being here. Also, Ranil's been a bit sick these last couple of days, so it's really great to have you here.
Okay.
So from your perspective, also knowing that you've been working very close with Thilak, with Dr. Shiva, but also within Sri Lanka with the agroecological movement, how do you see Sri Lanka moving forward from here? How does it work now? What are the concrete steps that you can take?
Right. Could I have a screen share, please? Could I share the screen?
I think you should be able to. If not, I will make sure that now you can.
Share screen. Okay, here I go. As so, and yep. Yeah. Okay. Can you see? Are we on? Yeah.
Yes, we can see it. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to bring some personal history into this while I'm saying this. I was the first organic inspector from NASA for Sri Lanka. I came to Sri Lanka 25 years ago and certified the first 50 hectares of certified crop. We built up organic gardening and farming in Sri Lanka as an export industry. I was the chairman of Lanka Organics until 25 years later, that 50 hectares grew to 49,000 hectares without any support from the government, none whatsoever. There was no interest in us. Until this lot came, this success, our success, attracted this political interest. Which assumed that the 250 million US fertilizer subsidy bill could be addressed by cutting off the farmer to all farmers in the name of organic production. This is what happened. They looked at our success and jumped into this and said, great. We can cut it off and all the farmers can go organic. Idiots. But there we are. The world is full of idiots. Anyway, that's what happened to Sri Lanka. All right. Now, why? Because what sustained the organic farms was their living soil. The idiots cannot understand this. Soil is the most specious ecosystem on earth. It has the most number of species on earth. The vast majority of these organisms have not yet been described. Let me show you. 1 gram of good soil, enough to cover my thumbnail, contains 1 to 2 billion individual bacterial cells. Sharing the same gram are the actinomycetes with populations of 100 to 200 million individuals. Then there's the fungi, the algals, nematodes, collemboles, microarthropods, etc. Just in bacteria alone, the upper 15 centimeters of soil in a good farm has the weight of about 500 to 1100 kilograms of living material per hectare. If you take all the material, we are looking at close upon 10 to 12 tons of living material per hectare, which is like having 20 horses. This is like having 20 horsepower working day and night in your soil. This is the energy that gives organic agriculture and traditional productivity for 3,000 years. This is the energy that has kept us alive and kept us going. Now we enter into this chemical realm, and what happens? Fertilization with chemical salts tends to destroy the soil ecosystem and its productivity. As the fertilization intensity increases, you might get bigger crop, but below the ground, the whole plant carbon allocation is reduced hugely and the soil starts dying. When the soil biomass gets reduced more and more, the productivity goes out, and then you have to keep on putting artificial fertilizer to get a crop. The soil then is like a drug addict. It's addicted to external input and cannot survive or produce without external input. So there is the question there, and there is another important question. The removal of trees from a landscape. You see, all soil depends on the plants above it to maintain itself, because soil is fed by the root exudates of plants, crop plants, trees, etc. If you look at this figure here, you will see as the depth increases, the diversity of soil organisms goes down until there is nothing left. So it requires deep-rooted plants in order to create a deep soil. Without deep-rooted plants, you will not create a deep soil in your ecosystem. Next, soil organic matter. Soil organic matter is important because healthy soils have a high water holding capacity. 1% increase is 20,000 gallons of water. Same, the incremental value of soil organic matter, if you look at available phosphorus, available nitrogen, water holding capacity, as the soil organic matter increases, this also increases. This is how we should understand and look at soil. Now, social values today do not consider ecosystem services from each identified ecosystem. If you look at this, from the woods, if you go into the urban, you find your runoff goes down, the infiltration, runoff increases, infiltration goes down, and of course, the soil disappears. When we do analog forestry, therefore, that is what we try to do. We try to mimic the most mature system that gives you the best ecosystem services in an area. This has, at the moment, not even being considered by planners. Now, with urbanization, one thing we must remember, with urbanization, all soil functions cease forever. That is, the soil and the earth had a discourse, gas exchange, that had been going on for billions of years. When we urbanize, we put and create roads, we put a rigid pavement on it, and the soil below has no access. So this entire exchange of atmospheric gases and water from a living soil is reduced. And urbanization does not pay for the opportunity cost of sealing the agricultural soils. They say, this is development, because developers just make quick money on it by destroying the productivity of this earth. Now, next. Now, compounding this critical loss is this. The pesticide use in Sri Lanka has been 1,800 metric tons per annum in active ingredients only. Fertilizer application, 120 kilograms per hectare per year. Now, look at what it does. When it looks at our population, we live healthy for a little while, and once we reach 30, 34 years, then begins the non-communicable diseases. The diseases created by the chemicals, whether it be cancer, whether it be emphysema, whether it be kidney disease, all the diseases now begin, the non-communicable diseases start increasing, so that you cannot live a healthy life. You cannot imagine that you will have a healthy life if you live in a society that's feeding you poisonous foods. This is what will happen. And then there are many roads to death. in the farming community, right? There is the kidney disease, there is suicides. A study here shows in 2021, before the Green Revolution, only 5 per 100,000 died due to suicide in Sri Lanka. With the introduction of pesticides, the Green Revolution, well, it increased to 27 per 100,000. Now, this is there right before our eyes. We can ask ourselves a question. In our farming communities, were there non-communicable diseases at this rate? No. When did this begin? In Sri Lanka, it began in the late 60s and 70s. Did we do anything different in agriculture at this time? Yes. We grabbed the Green Revolution and we pushed it into our rural sector. This is what created the disaster in our country. The Green Revolution, revolting, right? In another thing, okay, even if we can escape the agricultural toxins, can we adapt to climate change? This is another thing our so-called scientists have totally, they're not even talking about it, right? What is happening now? Look, chlorophyll is an enzyme. Chlorophyll is what produces all our food. This enzyme, the reaction rate increases up till about 38, 39 degrees. This is the optimum. And then it starts denaturing and it starts going down. At about 46 to 48, no productivity, it's over. Now, in many of our countries, because of climate change, the agricultural temperatures are going up. They're exceeding 37 degrees. In India, Pakistan, they're going to 40. Look at this. You know, as the temperature increases, boom, they collapse. Look at the maize, right? As they reach 40, it collapses. There is no way we can live doing agriculture the way that we have been doing it in the face of climate change. How can we adapt? Okay, one possibility is that the leaves of trees affect transpirated cooling of the ambient environment. One tree gives a cooling equivalent of 10 AC units, about 1,200,000 British thermal units per day of cooling. So if you have an acre of trees with 540 million British thermal units a day for cooling, can we use this to redesign our agricultural landscapes to face the future before us? Look at this. In a rice field like this, if the temperature rises up, there is no way you can protect this. You'll have no crop, it's gone. If you create an ecosystem that is surrounded by trees and plants that give you a cooling factor, you will get a crop out of it. This is the future. This is what we have to think about when we start moving into a climate compromised future that we have to face in the future. Now, tree-covered home gardens are the ideal response for food security and adapting to climate change. Why? Because the trees give you deep rooting, creates good soil. The trees also give you a cooling factor and allows you to get a crop out of your land. In the coming future, these designs will be critical, and that's why analog forestry is useful in implementing such designs. Now, as it is now I'd like to share something really fundamentally important with you, and that is, as it is the activity of the leaves that issue the initial or primary ecosystem services into the ecosystem through the act of primary productivity. That is, they create the oxygen, they create the water, they create the food while they are living. However, under the current economy, look at this picture, only the fruit has value. We pluck this and send it to market, it has value. The leaves have no value. Under the proposed economy, these leaves too have value, but as long as it is attached to the tree and producing, doing the job of photosynthesis and creating primary ecosystem services. So we are now projecting a new economy that will, for the first time, begin to put a value on life. Consider our current economy. All its value is based on death. That is, all the food we eat was once living, but it has to be dead and processed to eat. All the timber, everything we use biologically was once living. It has to be dead and processed to enter the economy that we are stuck with. In the economy we propose, this economy will for the first time begin to put a value on life. An economy based on life as opposed to an economy based on death. This is the future. So,
Ranil,
yep.
just to remind you that we have a couple more minutes.
So this is the new economy. This is how we put it into practice. Here, this is a small farming family who are planting units that through our system, we evaluate its photosynthetic biomass growth and look at the oxygen and the water production. And these people are paid for 4 years for looking after that unit. So this is increasing the rural economy for these people and giving a value for something they never thought there was value before. The living leaves of their plants and trees, their crop. We give new value to the farmers. We give new value to the rural sector. This is the way out of it. Otherwise, we do not have much chance into the future. Finally, living biomass is an essential link between all elements of the planetary life support system, requiring the very same concern and care that we extend to our fields and forests, because the living soil cannot sustain itself without the plants above it, and the plants above it cannot sustain themselves without a living soil below it. Therefore, living biomass must become a critical indicator of the sustainability of any ecosystem. This, I think, is what I have learned through my experience, and this is what I would like to share with you. Thank you.
Ranil, thank you so much. Maybe if you, there we go. I can see everyone now. This is really great. Thank you all for sharing your perspectives in this first round. We'd obviously have many questions. I also see that there's questions in the chat. We will have space for everyone to join. I do want to do one final round with our panelists, just because we have so many people from across the globe. And also with Thilak and Ranil kind of in the live of what's happening in Sri Lanka right now and following all the conversations. What recommendations do you have or messages do you have to our colleagues who are part of the movements across the globe that are demanding and advocating for a just transition and are also practitioners of organic, analog forestry and agroecological practices? What do you see as kind of key ways for them to keep pushing this forward in their own countries and territories? Maybe I can start with Thilak, and then we can move through the panel again. And just maybe keep it short to 2 minutes each, so that we can also go to the questions of the group.
Yeah, thank you, Maite. So my key message to the rest of the world will be, especially when you do a kind of transition like this, you should have the better understanding what is going on in the country, and you should have a kind of kind of analysis. Who can be the stakeholders, who can be the partners for taking up it, because even the researchers, even the government, the workers, the agriculture departments, and very hard to pushing with them, because they were in their mindset with the chemical agriculture. And you have to find the people who can be with support you with the scientific way and also with the extension way. And therefore you have to create the kind of the movement among these people and to bring this forward. If not, you will get backfire like what happened in Sri Lanka, because these some of the allies will give you a kind of a push where you can't see what is actually going on. That's what happened with the media. They were hired, even the international media, to use against to this message. With they have hired some of the Indian the groups to take the message to the rest of the world and saying organic is pale in Sri Lanka, and you see therefore the systematic transition need some of the factors where what I have mentioned, and after that, and you have to think about not like overnight the decision. You have to step out. The people who is committed, you have to have the separate package for them to start from immediately. And there are people who is not immediately want to go into the transition, but they are willing to go in. That means they may be ready to go for a 30% organic fertilizer, 70% chemical fertilizer. But it's not making what we want. But the commitment what they are having, it's make kind of a reality where they will hear to us, and then we can change them afterward with the gradually. And if we have a kind of a systematic way of doing that, and that's not the big thing. Within 1 or 2 years we can change those people mindset, and the policymakers normally they will always go with where the people is asking. What media is creating. Media has to be with you, and you have to always make kind of a success stories and show them this is something happening. But in Sri Lankan case, because of this glyphosate ban and the chemical ban, the fertilizer ban, the huge the profit make out of these, the crop life got angry, and they have invested, even the universities and different their chemical lobbies to talk about this, and they have huge pumping to the money has pumped to the media, and they were the one who was bringing this is not really true. This is not happening, and that is the way we were got in a kind of in middle court with this decision, and the final message. We as a civil society have a responsibility to play, and I think civil society should be take advantage with this. We know how the political system will work and how the politicians are working, and we from here we have to take the lead for bringing this into the into the ground level in a different ways what we are highlighting here.
Thank you, Thilak. I just want to make sure there's enough time to hear still from Vandana and from Ranil, but also from everyone who has their hands up. So Dr. Shiva, maybe your key message to this group, there'll be more questions anyway, but what would be your key message?
I think the first thing in the just transition has to be the changing of the mindset away from the monoculture of the mind. You know, a system that doesn't allow you to see the leaf and then creates chemicals to kill the leaves as if they're your enemy. What's Roundup but killing the green leaf, killing the green plants? You know, when we launched the poison-free campaign for 2030, it was partly because of what we were seeing in India, what was happening in Sikkim, the success of organic. But Mars, a little village in the Alps, prosperous village. You won't believe it. The apple trees are no more apple trees. They're stems with no leaves, only apple. Ranil, what you were saying, only the fruit has value, they've reduced it to a technological achievement of the leaves are the enemy of the plant. So I think this dysfunctional mindset, which is Cartesian, which is Baconian, which is reductionist, which is mechanistic, we have to leap beyond it. So, and that is our work. Governments won't do it. Citizens have to make this shift. Movements have to make this shift. We have to, for me just now, in a just transition, recognize that people are part of nature. And therefore we must never pit the rights of nature and the rights of people in opposite ways. I'm so glad I was asked to make a contribution to the entire Chilean constitution, which is putting the rights of nature as Ecuador did. So the two other roundtables you will have will be putting the rights of nature at the center as the foundation of human rights. A farmer who is in a place where there are no trees is already vulnerable to desertification. We sat with the super heat on our farm this year, where we have trees and the neighboring farms have no trees and use lots of urea. The difference between the soil on our farm and the soil in their farm was 25 degrees. That's the difference. That's how we deal with climate change. And moisture, when you have that much heat, you have lots of evaporation. The moisture content in our soils was 15% higher because of the organic matter. Now, these are the sciences not even being looked at. And we'll have to do the invisible sciences. It's not an accident that both Ranil and I are independent. Yeah, I don't think in universities, our minds would have been allowed to flower in the different direction. We have to be aware that there are massive unjust transitions taking place on the backs of the distraction that organic destroyed Sri Lanka. While that rumor is being spread, we are getting drones for spraying more chemicals. We are getting driverless tractors. We are getting robots for harvesting. No matter which way you look at it, it's unjust and anti-ecological. Every change in industrial agriculture has been a change to get rid of farmers, because productivity was defined in a very false way to increase energy slaves and decrease the living work people. Every part of industrial agriculture treats nature as an enemy. Insects are enemies. That's why we have insecticide. Leaves are an enemy. Spray the Roundup. Farmers must be displaced. Farming without farmers, food without farmers is the vision of the billionaires right now. That's where they want to make money. And finally, the most unjust transition of all, I read a piece that having got Sri Lanka into a debt trap, the real crisis of Sri Lanka is the debt trap. Organic was badly done, but it's not the cause. The debt trap, they're already talking about debt for nature. An American conservation group is offering what? $1 billion to take away the waters. Debt for nature means I'll pay your debt, but your nature will belong to me. And it's even worse. Just before the climate summit in Glasgow, Rockefeller, who pushed the green revolution, Mr. Rockefeller was the main financier because he was Standard Oil. He was behind the chemical fertilizers. Yeah, we should have to make those links. You know what they're talking about? Not talking about nature as living and living systems, but nature as a financial asset. And they're looking at $4,000 trillion of profits in their hands, nothing in the people's hand. So a just transition with all this greed, looking at nature, looking at our food, we have to tell them hands off our food, hands off our land, hands off our trees. And our movement for a just transition has to be a movement for reclaiming our commons of knowledge, our commons of biodiversity, our commons of soil fertility, our commons of a common future.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva. Ranil, maybe your last message, and then we can go to the various questions.
What Vandana pointed out also was that the industrialization of agriculture. But what everybody forgets is that this is done at the cost of the climate, because every chemical used is based on fossil energy. Every tractor that goes is based on fossil energy. All these huge farms are totally based on fossil energy. In Sri Lanka, before the Green Revolution, just before the Green Revolution, when this was starting, a kilocalorie of food from a farm cost us 0.05 kilocalories of external energy. Today, it is 2 kilocalories of external fossil energy that goes in to produce 1 kilocalorie of food. We are eating oil. We are totally dependent on it. We are addicted to this system. So we have to get out of this. This is important. One of the things for the farmers that we are developing is not debt for nature, but debt for ecosystem services. Ecosystem services are what the farmers can produce. And we can put this up and say, hey, okay, this is this much of ecosystem services our farms have produced. And we want to do a debt for ecosystem services swap. This is the direction we have to go into the future. And for all of you who are practicing analog forestry, consider that the largest amount of living biomass on the planet is either in its mature ecosystem or an ecosystem analogous or similar to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranil, and thank you, Thilak and Dr. Shiva, for your messages. There's a few questions and a few hands raised, so I will try to start. I'm also keeping an eye on the time for everyone, so if you have a question or you would like to participate, please also raise your hand. We'd be happy to unmute you and be part of this. But I want to start with a question that came in from Rosa, that this was while you were speaking, Dr. Shiva. I'm going to read it first in Spanish and then I'll translate it. So it says, on what you shared in your first intervention, I'm starting in English, on what you shared on your first intervention, Dr. Shiva, the organic transition requires as a condition the independence and autodetermination or self-determination of countries, where you can also develop autonomous science. Do you believe that in Sri Lanka there are these conditions?
Huh?
That's to me?
Yes, it was
Yeah.
while you were, but I don't know, maybe Thilak and Ranil can also contribute.
Well, yes, when organic policies at the state level, it does mean a successful transition depends on a successful independence. Yeah, Cuba was pushed into a corner and used that cornering to create an independent organic policy. Sikkim chose to create an organic policy that was independent, but I don't think in most places the transition is taking place by state-driven policies. We were talking about the successful transitions at the state level, but most transitions in the world are taking place at the civil society level, at the farmers' level. And for that, each individual and each community that decides to be autonomous becomes autonomous. That decides, I don't need your fertilizer. I will boycott your poisons. I will boycott you. Just yesterday in India, I launched a whole campaign for a fast food free India. That autonomy is our autonomy as human beings and as community.
Great. I don't know, Ranil or Thilak, do you want to complement that? Also based because you're both based in Sri Lanka?
Yeah. Well, I mean, are we talking about the lack of research?
No, about the need. So Dr. Shiva was saying, oh, I lost the question now. Here we go.
Basically, it's about autonomy, and there's an assumption it's only at the state level. Sovereignty is not only located in the state. Sovereignty is located in each of us.
Yeah, yeah. If you're talking about autonomy and organic production in Sri Lanka, as I told you at my opening, I was the inspector who certified the first 50 hectares in Sri Lanka without any government, without any policy, right? Just the people who were interested in organic and interested in creating a market for it. In 25 years, we grew that to 49,000 hectares. Now, if that is not spectacular growth without any government support, I don't know what is, right? But then the government went and screwed us over by doing this stupid thing. What do we do?
Thank you, Ranil. I see that Chris Dharmakirti has his hand up. Chris, if you would like to mute yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. I think what I would like to add, and I agree with what Thilak and Ranil and Dr. Shiva had stated, but there's another perspective which we missed here. And that perspective is that when the state subsidizes chemical fertilizer, which costs, for example, $100, which is being given for $2 to the farmers, they get into a very, very easy ride of getting chemical fertilizer inputs, and they get tamed to be very lazy farmers, to keep adding stuff and not do the hard work of doing the preparation and the restoration of the soil and the ecosystem around it. So in Sri Lankan context, in one of the aspects that happened, and as Thilak correctly said, the government decision to do it was driven for to save dollars because the country was in a foreign exchange crunch. But of course, there were other aspects that were being bandied as to the reason why they went for it overall as a green economy initiative. But the problem was that there was a ministry created for organic agriculture. There was a minister appointed, and the fertilizer secretariat was also put under that particular minister. And there seemed to be an interest by certain groups of people who wanted this countrywide organic implementation done in Sri Lanka, when there was advice and caution notes issued by several of us, including the scientific community that was researching biofertilizers, particularly the soil biome researchers in the National Institute of Fundamental Studies, led by Professor Ananda Kulasurya, Dr. Gamini Senaviratna, Dr. Srimal Premakumara, Professor Ben Basnayaka. I mean, there was a huge number of scientists who were involved in researching the soil biome and looking at biofertilizers, particularly liquid fertilizers that were bacteria based, and they were achieving fantastic results over and above the chemical inputs in terms of the studies that were conducted even within the agriculture department, where the Sri Lanka's average rice production was 4.2 tons using chemical fertilizer, and some other liquid fertilizer additives in combination with high nitrogen compost and other inputs were delivering 5.2, 5.6 tons of rice per hectare. And that such research was hidden from the decision makers because there was a interest by the crop life and the fertilizer import mafia, the chemical fertilizer import mafia, for that importation to continue, because there was corruption in the country. Corruption is one of the key reasons, because there's a lot of money that is flowing between the agriculture department officials and the politicians. And that corruption was one of the factors, and also the opportunistic situation that arose with the government decision for a new group of fertilizer importers of organic fertilizer, rubbish from China or wherever they were planning to bring it, who thought that they can replace the chemical mafia. And so they were also hell-bent on wanting to do this countrywide, when all of us were issuing letters and cautionary notes saying you can't do this countrywide and you cannot import anything from overseas because that will completely contaminate our biome, soil biome, and that we should first do a carrying capacity study and implement this on a watershed by watershed basis. Sri Lanka has 103 river basins, and already one organic zone has been created in one river basin in a smaller watershed. And we said, well, you've got to do this watershed by watershed, but do a carrying capacity study, look at the local fertilizer, or rather the soil nutrition management input providers, what is the amount of hectares that they can actually support. And the numbers came to like something like 250,000 hectares was all what could be supported with local producers of soil inputs, which were proven to work on the ground in some other agriculture department studies themselves. But no, instead they want to do 800,000 hectares, which was beyond the local support carrying capacity. So my point is, there is corruption, there is profit intentions, motives, and there is also the suppressing of data, because the certain interested parties wanted to sell very poor quality soil improvement inputs, calling it organic fertilizer, which is essentially urban waste being pulverized and sold, and also just soil being collected as sediments from lakes, which had no real nitrogen or high value inputs at all. And they were contaminants with a lot of chemicals. And these were being sold through the state channels or distributed through the state channels as quality fertilizers. So it was again because of corruption and because of very poor governance in Sri Lanka. So that's another point that needs to be understood in the context of why it failed. No carrying capacity and no systematic implementation through ecosystems identified by watershed. And of course, as Thilak quite correctly pointed out, there was absolutely no agriculture extension officer training and knowledge transfer to the farmers as to how they can become agroecological farmers. So that's another point I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. That complements very well the interventions. I would like to invite Maurice. I'm also trying to ensure the participation of women in this space. So maybe Maurice, would you like to go ahead with your question?
Thank you so much. Actually, I'm with my partner here, Chanaka, who's a man, but I will ask the question. So we're from Chaz Organics. We have an organic food company in Canada importing organic foods from Sri Lanka. So I know some of you there. Hi. I just had a comment. We strongly feel that this message needs to get communicated to the organic community and to the organic leaders. Here, Chanaka is joining me now. So we were actually in Sri Lanka for 4 months last year during the beginning of this organic transition. And we were, I think, quite vocal. We did a lot of farmer training. We toured the country. We tried our utmost best to get the message out to the organic community as well, that we think like the success of this organic transition will rely on telling farmer success stories and networking within the organic community to help farmers. And we're really all about empowerment. You know, we can sit around here for hours blaming the government. Everyone knows that there's corruption. Everyone knows that there's mismanagement, but that's not going to solve any of the problems that we're facing. And I think that it's really up to the organic community to step up and start working better together. You know, everyone's in a silo. There's a lot of experts, but I don't always see the experts on the field. So I just think that it's really important to go to the real experts who are the farmers and tell their story and show their story, that there are already organic success stories within Sri Lanka. A number of them, many farmers are successfully growing organic. And we should be championing that message. We should be showing the other farmers that this is possible, because we don't need to sit around and discuss the technicalities of how to go organic. We already know how, and the farmers have already done it successfully. So why aren't we planning instead how to tell this message to the rest of the world and to the other farmers? I don't know.
Yeah. I completely agree with Marisa. You know, for me being, you know, Sri Lankan and you know, the short time that we had in Sri Lanka, we tried our utmost best. Obviously, government could have planned a lot better. Everybody knows this. But one thing that I noticed, we were given a massive opportunity there, and the amount of voice came out from our community was minimum, I felt. You know, we could have done a lot better. We could have been a little bit more forceful, you know, like when there's, you know, companies like, you know, helping some farmers to go on protest and all that. There's nobody, I think, went up there and like try to, you know, speak the truth. there's very little communication was done. In fact, I was invited to one of the TV station program, and one of the producers said, most of the people who come here, they just speak something, and when they are leaving saying that we are not believing in this project. So the people who are advocating wasn't believing to begin with. So I think we could have done a little bit better with our resources. And it was a great opportunity that we had on our hands. And
it's not over, it's not a failure. We need to counter the message in the media, which is saying that the organic transition is responsible for the food crisis, which is absolutely a lie. How can the organic community do better now and tell those organic success stories to show that no, the organic farmers are the ones who are thriving now. It is still the success of organic, that aren't depending on fossil fuel and imported fertilizer. I just think we need to do a better job of storytelling.
Thank you. I wonder if one of the panelists want to share or react to the comments that have been made by. Yeah.
Thank you, both of you. Kind
go ahead, and then we'll go to Dr. Shiva.
Yeah, it was very good. The comment from your side. Yeah, we have done the maximum support to the during the decision was taken, but it was the not a one the side what we have done in a way, because this was mixed with the political decisions and some of the administrative decisions. Some of those when it was mixed with the politics and we couldn't support directly to some of these things, but we were offered different levels to the government to come up. Even we have done Lanka Organic Agriculture Movement. We have done a series of training programs to the government officers who can be change their mindset. We can say there are no the government officers who understand this and the supporting this. There are people, but their voice is very minimum compared to the bigger the chemical voice. But we will not stop this the work, and we will continue. And we have a strength even before now to go into this decision. And what we do, we are not talking to the politician. We will right now what we are doing, we are talking to the farmers and making them change as what is needed in the ground level. The good to know you are from Canada, and I know our friend who is ambassador is also joined today, the Sri Lankan ambassador to Canada, with this discussion. And I think with this he's the promoter of organic in last 30 years, and I think with this the support, you can be help the ground level people who are really committed to going organic or ecological or regenerative way.
Thank you, Thilak. Thank you. Dr. Shiva, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, I wanted to say, quite clearly this issue is not only about Sri Lanka. Yes, Sri Lanka is in a deep crisis, but the false narrative that organic is the cause of that crisis, we shouldn't fall into that trap. The way to deal with it is the science of industrial agriculture is fake. And I think we need to lay out the real science of what makes life work. And that will never, ever get beaten, no matter how much they'll try. That knowledge will grow. The second thing we need to do much more is show that not only are they attacking Sri Lanka, they're attacking European farm-to-fork policy. Using the same arguments, we're going to starve, we are going to starve. They've created a false narrative that the Ukraine war created food scarcity. It did not. FAO has acknowledged there's no problem on the food front. Speculation, 80% of the price rise this year is not because of the Ukraine war. but it is because of speculation and the BlackRocks and the Vanguards getting into this system. So I think we have to do what we do and have been doing, each of us has done this for decades and decades and decades. The science of it, the relationships with the soil, the earth, the plants, the biodiversity, the issue of connecting farmers and producers. The only way to beat inflation of food is to know the farmer who grows your food and get it from their front yard. Yeah. For us, we've shown that the farmers earn double and the consumer pays half by just going to a farmer who did the organic vegetables in their villages. This falseness that organic is for the elite. Organic is to beat the inflation of greed because of speculation. Organic is to beat the energy slaves and climate change. Organic is to beat the chronic diseases. All of this has been mentioned in the webinar today. And I think we need to constantly bring that perspective of the holistic system. And every country, every people is facing this crisis. Let's continue to offer organic as the solution to the multiple crises we face.
Thank you. I'm very aware of the time and I still see 2 hands up. So I'm going to give Chandra and Ajanta space. I just hope that you can be brief so that people can have space to share. So Chandra, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mete. My question, as I already put up on the board, is that is the crisis really socio-environmental or is it politico-commercial? And as the, there's a story that let's not look for the keys in the wrong place where we didn't lose it. So just because there is some light. So my question is that why have leaders like Dr. Vandana Shiva,
I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader. I'm just a citizen.
I'm sorry, you are my leader. You are leader for, you are the most respected and revered leader. See, I'm not mincing any words. I met you at the Sarso Satyagraha press conference and I asked you to let out the truth on who killed Anil Madhav Dave. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, killed the Environmental Minister Anil Madhav Dave. You also know the truth. But nobody had the basic courage. It didn't take, nobody was going to assassinate anybody for that. Nobody was going to, do a ED or a CBI raid. If you just let the country know that Narendra Modi at 11 p.m. in the night of 16th of June 2017 met the environment minister and next morning he was dead. We were at Gandhi Peace Foundation. So this basic courtesy, Dr. Shiva, that the country and the world needs, because we look up to you. We look up to your political leadership, because political is not about pettiness. It's not about, narrow-mindedness. It's about,
I'm very sorry, but this is, we're trying to keep.
That's my question. So if it is about leadership, then look for the right leaders on the panel. I think we are missing the woods for the trees.
Thank you, Chandra. I do want to go back to your initial question, which was, is this crisis socio-environmental or political commercial? So I don't know if any of the panelists want to answer that.
I think just semantics.
I think all of us had said that they're too deeply connected. I think, Ranil said that, I said this. This putting things in silos is part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Thank you so much. Ajanta, do you want to go ahead with your final question and we'll be closing? I'm very sorry, Atula, but we're running out of time.
The other thing I shared about Dr. Martin Luther King.
I'm sorry, but we have to give space to Ajanta. I'm very sorry.
I mean, it's not a question actually. I would just like to add something. Thank you for all the panelists. I mean, it is really amazing because trying to eye-open the blinds in the world of what is happening. The thing is, as far as we are concerned, because there was a question that what are we doing? So the thing is, as far as the Lanka organic agriculture the movement concerned, and also for FGPIC concerned, we are trying to go beyond organic and we are trying to turn more people into analog forestry. And also same time, there's a big question of people asking, where are the data for the kidney disease and things like that. So what we are trying to do is, if you go to the LOAM YouTube channel, there will be a video of Dr. Gammampilla speaking about the kidney disease and the thalassemia. please have a look, because people are trying to counterattack and saying there is no data. So other thing is, what we are doing is we are also translating 75 organic videos, short ones, that will be soon available in our YouTube channel. And also there are a few more very interesting, what we thought is in the YouTube channel for organic people to know, because even though we say that the people know organic, there is a huge demand for knowledge and technology because of liquid fertilizer and things like that. People doesn't know the correct way to do it. So we are trying to help, and we are in the process of doing that. So please have a look. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajanta. I think we're going to wrap up. Atula, is this a question or a comment? Because I'd really invite a question at this moment. But if it's a comment, then I think we would be wrapping up. All right, I think we're going to be wrapping up. I want to sincerely thank Thilak, Dr. Shiva, and Ranil for joining us at a very early hour for you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know there's many issues to talk about. There's many factors that need to contribute here to this discussion. We hope that this conversation can keep going. So do please join us for the upcoming series where we will talk about Ecuador. I'm going to show it here. It'll be in early September. I believe we will also have a very lively discussion and lively debate from the different people that we will be inviting. And we just want to thank you all for being here today. We had a big group. And if you have any follow-up questions, please let us know. We'd be happy to share more information from Dr. Shiva, from Ranil and Thilak, and about the important work that they're doing in Sri Lanka, but also across the globe. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bohome Stuti.
Mhm.